the invitation and for the preliminary words. One thing that I think it's important to address why I put father of two in, because actually, unfortunately, what I think that our generation is kind of lost this battle. So the next generation will be the one who has to resurrect the human rights discourse and also prevent the world from completely falling apart, because our generation was the father of social media and also led the discussion on how social media should be, but this discussion is not really won. That's the point. Why I think it's important to think of the next generation and to make them ready that in their time of growing up there will be a completely different world as we are in it now. So my presentation is a little bit on the impact of social media on youth in general, and of course as one of the impact is radicalization and the spread of hate speech and stereotypes. That's the focus that I will go into details, and a little bit on also what we did or what I experienced as international organizations, especially Council of Europe as well, did about this phenomenon. So some might say that actually the internet has three main purposes, and that's where the unicorn comes in. One is to share funny videos of cats and animals and all sorts of things. The second is online pornography, because 78% of online content is actually, just to know, is pornography. And the second is arguing endlessly about beliefs. Endlessly because online argumentation, online discussion is trying to create a rational discussion while beliefs are irrational. So the problem of online media in general is that it lacks the emotional content of a discussion. So when we send an email to someone or we send a message to someone online, we don't have the sarcasm button, for example. So emotions that are normally considered humorous can be understood as hate. So there is this phenomenon, and we don't know how to address that. So as long as there is no sarcasm button on Facebook, we might end up in fighting a war that does not exist. But on the other term, when it comes to the so-called online society has a very big challenge, which is the spread is enormously fast. So when there is something happening in a situation, if there is lack of context to that situation, then beliefs or, let's say, fake news or, let's say, phenomenons spread really, really enormously fast. So normal traditional societies, international organizations, states, or even the ordinary citizens don't have time to think about it. They don't have at all time to think about it, because just to know, social experiments prove that beliefs about the situation, whatever happens in the world, will be decided online in 72 hours, so 3 days. And that will be the decision of the online society if it's true or not, if it's right or not. So when we come to terms like, for example, Islam terrorism, the phenomenon starts from 73, from Iran, the Iranian Revolution. Before that, in the international news, there was not this term called Islam or Muslim terrorism, and then it got a second boost at 9/11. And then we have the second term, gypsy criminalism. In Hungary, this was often used from a Kurucinfo website, which is a right-wing radical website that is still ongoingly spreading hate from a beautiful American server, and 24/7 you can read what is gypsy criminalism, what is Jewish criminalism, what is political criminalism, and often depicting great intensive hate speech against minorities, vulnerable groups, and also individuals just like me, because I was also featured there, but many of the human rights activists in Hungary has like a section on Kurucinfo. So that's another phenomenon. And then the third one is, which we Hungarians endured, which was the social beneficiary migrants. So if you have enormous amount of capacity, like the Hungarian government did in 2015, to spread the word social beneficiary migrant, which means basically someone who trying to act like an asylum seeker, but actually wants to come to the country to take our social benefits. So if you have enormous capacity and 3 days, you can spread this as a belief system, and from that point on, it will be very difficult to moderate society to counteract this type of terms. And of course, because we speak fastly, so then gypsy criminalism is just subjected into gypsies. When it comes to social beneficiary migrants, then the term relates only to migrants. And then the Islamic terrorism, it means Muslim people. So that is the problem of social media, and this is the challenge that we yet don't have any solutions to tackle. So, why we even have social media? Why we invented it? So what is the problem? First of all, lack of media access, because ordinary citizens don't have enough money, didn't have enough money to buy 10 weekly magazines from Germany, Spiegel, or from Hungary, I don't know, Havigi, because it takes enormous amount of resource to read that enormous amount of information that was available in the so-called traditional media. So what we did, we invented social media to access democratically, freely this news. Second, we love visual things, so we don't really like presentations that only one color. That's why I have to use all sorts of things to make your attention and come back to me. So that's why I did also to take a horror scene in order to get your attention. And the third one is that participation with low thresholds. So social media, what you need to do is buy a phone, and you are on social media. Then you have the constant innovation, because gadgets, apps, and all sorts of tools are coming to you with fresh advertisement. There are all the billboards of the world trying to sell you this so-called third generation media that is called Facebook and social media in general. And then we have this gadget society, because now we work, we live, we love through our gadgets. So nothing happens that is not happening via a post on Instagram. That didn't happen if you didn't take a picture of it, including your dinner, your first date, your child baptism, and whatnot. And I don't mean that all of us are involved in this, but the majority of Western European society, but also including, of course, the third world. And then we have this homo societas, which is our desperate need to be connected and to get feedback from the others who we are connected to. We live in a society, and we want that society to like us. So that's why we spread what we do in order to get immediate emotional feedback by likes and shares and all sorts of posts. So globalization and consumer society mixed together with this social phenomenon that is called I need other people to live. That three created the fundamentals of social media, and it's widespread in the last 5 years. Because 10 years ago there was no Facebook, just to then we have some positives, which we can work out in detail, but I don't want to go so deeply. So first of all, knowledge is much faster and free, because we have Wikipedia, so if you don't know something, you can immediately look it up by just a simple Google search. Every member of society can have a voice, share opinions, and participate. When it comes to Facebook Live, we can watch how our parliamentarians trying to stop the authoritization of Hungary. It is very simple, and you don't require so much resource for it. Then we have subcultures like Game of Thrones fans or Star Wars fans, or even, I don't know, lovers of reggae music can immediately join in a group, and there is no geographical limitation to that, because a person from Rwanda or a person from Nairobi together with someone from Iceland can form a beautiful Facebook group, and they can grow as enormously as their content grows. And then we have work, because work with cloud service and email and all these things were also a big factor in why we love this and what is the positive of the spread of social media. And then we have the political and economical marketing tools, because I don't know if you ever tried, but it's very easy to advertise on social media and spread beliefs through it, which was much more difficult before, because if I want to advertise something on a European level, how broad I should put how many advertisements in how many newspapers in order to reach the European phenomenon or visibility. So that goes much faster with social media. And then we have the shared economy and new opportunities for business like Uber or Airbnb and Booking.com. It became very simple to travel to and sell goods at the same time. And of course, social media is mostly fun. That's what we do. But then we have the negatives. Lack of critical thinking. And that is the most important and most relevant thing, which is coming also connected to education and the citizens' initiative. So without critical thinking, the internet is a lost battle. If we cannot check and double check what is online, we don't have the power to actually counter argument or even understand what's going on. And then the second is anonymity. This we can also go in detail, but actually hate speech is much easier spread when the people who are we fighting or talking to are anonymous. We don't know who they are, we don't know where they come from, and of course they also don't see the impact of the hate speech they provide. Because if I come near to someone and shout in their face, that reaction that comes from them is immediate. So I see my actions in real life. But when it comes to hate speech, I don't see who I hate when I just spread something that, I don't know, like all brown-haired people are evil. I don't know who are brown people, I don't know how many will read it, and I also don't see if they like it or not, what I spread. So that is a problem with anonymity. And then criminality and terrorism through online media is a very effective tool. So we don't know how to stop that. There are some initiatives, but none of them really work, just to make it clear. And then we have, of course, social awkwardness. People love to talk a lot on Tinder and on WhatsApp, but when they actually face-to-face meet, they don't know how to talk to each other without their gadgets. So even sometimes friends and families WhatsApp each other inside the house in order to avoid some sort of physical discussions. And then we have this opinionation bubble, which means that people who we agree with, their posts are much more likely to show up on our timeline on Facebook. So meaning that we agree with everyone that is going on, but it also means that we get more and more radical in our own belief system. So if we are part of a vegan group and our friends are mostly vegan, we will share, of course, vegan recipes, and at the end of the year, we might think that everybody who is not vegan is stupid. That's a phenomenon that was also proven by social experiments in real life, but also on social media. But when it comes to hate, when it comes to discrimination, that means that if I think that Roma people are sometimes stealing, then if I'm part of an opinion bubble, at the end I will not avoid using negative terms on gypsies, but at the same time I will also maybe allow other people who are much more radical to use physical violence. I will not negate that, because my radicalism through social media source became enormously huge. And then, yeah, change of physical body, because if you don't go out a lot, then of course your hands will be different and you will not lose enough weight. But of course, it's more important that the easy spreading of ideological materials without counter-arguments is again online. Like Hitler's famous book was prohibited to be printed all over Europe. Now you can download it for free. So it is not that difficult to get access to media or arguments that are actually not true or biased and are spreading hate worldwide. And then, yeah, there is the selfie me versus the real me. So people tend to love their own online version better than their own real version, meaning that they don't live a proper life, but they live a proper life online, which will be, again, a phenomenon that we have to tackle soon, because it also accumulates in hate speech by the fact that some people are bullied on their online persona, and it is more hurting them if they would be actually tackled in the school, because they could fight back. So there is a problem around this as well. And then we have the influencers. Influencers are famous people that they have absolutely no ideological whatsoever. Mostly they don't even talk about human rights as such, and they are what the kids are following. So they are not following any human rights convention, they are not following any of the prestigious international organizations, Twitter, but they do follow Justin Bieber. So if Justin Bieber would say hating Roma people is bad, it would have much more impact, that single one tweet, than what international organizations did, and I'm sorry to say that, all over the past year. So that one tweet could help more. So what to do. Yeah, and then observation, monitoring, and lack of privacy, observation of the individuals, lack of privacy of the individuals, and monitoring of our actions, where we do, what we do, where we demonstrate, who we talk to, where do we have a vacation. This is all monitored and at the same time often used against us when we try to tackle hate speech. And as a human rights defender, you have to protect your own online identity with serious means, because if you don't, you might be subjected to physical violence, which is also occurring in my networks, but also occurs everywhere worldwide. Okay, so take care. And then targeted media campaigns, brainwashing and manipulation and propaganda are the best done online. You can advertise it much easier and much deeper, addressing those people who are kind of in between these groups, and if you know how to do it, your job is very simple. And I have to put a little special attention to Facebook, because Facebook is the largest social media platform. This day, 4 billion videos were watched on Facebook. So imagine how much information and information share is done via Facebook. And that's why we need to talk a little bit about it. So first of all, which is really bad, that it's basically killed traditional media. So traditional media tries to be online via Facebook, and they don't get money for this. So unfortunately, when you talk to traditional media, which has first of all journalists in, and people who are doing observation and monitoring, are writing articles for 6 months and 2 years, they are totally outdated, because you just put one post online and that's it. So their job is absolutely useless compared to what Facebook is doing. And yes, the spread of hate speech. Facebook is the largest platform for hate speech, including groups that are organizing to create violence against migrants in Germany, Roma in Hungary, and of course also all over the world, using it as a platform to communicate and share ideas that I already mentioned. And Facebook tries to create some sort of community standards and tries to tackle this, but because of the amount of data that we receive and share online, this is a job that Facebook alone cannot do. So even they try to cooperate with other stakeholders, the amount of data is making this almost impossible to tackle. It's just you have to consider that. But of course, if you expect change, then bring it with. What can we do about this? One thing that we have to consider, thinkers and representatives of all sorts of organizations, that we have a lack of vision for the future. In 1949, after the Second World War, we decided, okay, we don't want the Second World War to happen again. That's clear. But what happened since then? 70 years passed, and now we don't know what we want in the next 70 years to happen. So this lack of vision is one of the most important facts when it comes to tackling hate and hate-based violence, is that we have to think how we want to live together. Because when the Hungarian government asked for the referendum, one of the most important questions they said, Hungarian people should decide who they want to live together with. That was the decision. That is our sovereignty question. We want to decide it. But the problem is that this is silly, because in a country there are multiple diverse societies. Already just in Hungary, when we look at Budapest, so you are not allowed to think who to live together with. Because then you consider disabilities, then you consider alternative gender identities. You cannot say that we only want to live together with white heterosexual male. That is not an option anymore, and it was never an option for Hungary. So that's why we have to think about the vision for the future in order to address hate speech. And that's a big question for everyone, how to do it. And of course, when we have that vision, we have to reform education, because education is a 19th century invention, and nothing ever worked since the 19th century, so we should maybe think about how to modernize education for the 21st. And then we have to reform politics, we have to reform international law, because international law is written, but it is not talking to the people, because if the famous speech of Martin Luther King would be, I have a declaration, we would not remember that speech. So the problem is that our narrative is outdated completely. No, it does not function anymore. And then we have to, of course, reform ourselves. how we talk to people, how we talk among us, and how we cooperate with those who think and share the same. Because when I organize a demonstration or any campaign, the first thing I encounter, I don't work with them, I don't work with them, and I don't work with them, although we have the same common enemy. So then how to work together and include every type of opinions that are at least sharing the same vision. And we don't know. And of course, we have to reform our communities, our families, our friends, our beloved ones, because they will also have to face the same issues that we are. So it's not enough to be one human rights activist, you have to create human rights activists from everybody you know in order to change something. So that was it. Thank you very much for your attention. And just to make a little bit of link with the building that we are here, because Council of Europe created manuals, and that was in parallel with the so-called no hate speech movement that I was also part of, and being an online activist was a great thing. Basically, bookmarks is educational material for schools and to do human rights education in primary and secondary schools and universities. Then we created also the VCAN manual, which is building narratives, how to build counter narratives. And then the third one, which I recommend you to once get in touch with, is the Get the Trolls Out manual, which is actually how to argue professionally online and how to bring discussion from this belief system arc for a little bit further. So in order to do all this, you have materials available, but what already my colleagues mentioned, without political will and without a joint vision for the future, this is not going to happen by itself. So that's what I could tell, and I hope that some of the things you agree with, and if not, then I'm ready for the discussion after. So,